Welcome back on the AM show. Boy, is it good to have you. Well, before we get into what we are starting the big stories with, let me say a very good morning to Bernice Abubeidu Lanza. Hey there.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm very well. So, Bernice, yesterday we went back to the Weija Tetegu community to see how life was shaping up for some of those who were in that community, and very interesting it was. We'll be bringing some of those interactions to our viewers shortly, but from what you heard, some of the historical backgrounds and everything that were brought to bear by a former assemblyman, a unit committee, chairperson, opinion leaders in that community. What did that picture paint for you?
So Benjamin, I said that we had heard lots of angles to the story, but it was a good addition to the narration, especially when you're told about how the people came to settle there, how long they've been there, and then
some say 3 centuries.
Yes, and then we had a hint of a certain World Bank project, which I've been researching about. I'm yet to find anything concrete, because sometimes how these things are labeled and named. And so it would be good to speak to authorities there to get specifics that will lead us to proper research. But I've been trying to do my own research.
Digging around that issue.
And understanding of the subject. And then also the issue about the estuary being blocked. That is a very problematic one.
There's an interesting bit. At the very end of this, some of the same community members and what they have to say about the estuary and why sometimes the spilling or the spillage happens without the estuary being, open. I will not give, anything away, but it really got me thinking about how we do stuff in our country. But I guess all the details are right there.
Yeah, definitely. And so Benjamin was there yesterday. He's been speaking to some of those who've been affected by that particular incident. And also, Benjamin, we know that they've been warned, especially those around the buffer zone, to evacuate, because the Ghana Meteorological Agency is predicting more rains. But, let's find out from those who were worse hit by this incident how they've been coping after, and you've been speaking to some of them.
We're here in Old Tetegu, and of course, you know that as far as the spillage is concerned, all of these communities, Oblogo, Tetegu, the Weija area, were all affected. Well, today we find ourselves at the Old Tetegu taxi rank. You can see a car here being worked on. But we've also put together some opinion leaders in the community, those who are affected, and we're about to talk about the critical issues. So we are starting here with this gentleman. Good morning.
Elias Ariaman.
Please take your time. Let's start with your name.
Yeah, my name is Bernard Elias Ariaman.
Okay, so Bernard, tell us about what happened last week, the flooding, how it happened, and what people in the community, what do you think?
Yeah, actually the whole thing happened impromptly. Normally when it was coming, they have to give us information, but this very one, no information reached us. We were just in the house, all of a sudden then the water started coming. Then they told us that they have spilled Weija Dam. So actually we were there within some few minutes, our house rooms are all affected. So we have...
You mean in a matter of minutes?
With a matter of minutes, I can say. All of a sudden, the place was flooded. People were carrying their things out. Some of them, they were not able to carry their things out. Everything was completely spoiled in their rooms. That's how the whole thing happened. But the most important thing we wanted from the government is that whenever they are going to spill, they have to give us information. And then they marked to the seaside to see whether the place which has been blocked with the sun will be open, so that when they spill, it can pass through there straight to the sea and will not be affected. That's the most important thing they have to do first. They have to watch all over there and see whether the place is locked up, Botiano, is open. Then we can see something better.
So you're saying that we hear that in April, they made mention to you, the Ghana Water Company Limited, there was a spillage then. But you're saying that in this instance, there was no alert?
No alert at all. They didn't inform us anything. The water just started coming, just like that.
After this happened, now at least the flood waters have receded. We went deep into the town and realized that some places you would see that the bottom part, I think you can even see from here, where the watermark. What has been the impact of this on this community?
No, actually, we were very, very worried. We wanted the government actually to come in our aid to help, to see how we can. Because when we went far to ask, they said this place is a waterlogged, and then it's what they said they call the place. This place is just for birds to be railing birds all over here. So it means they don't bother us at all. But when it is time for voting and other things, they bring their balloting boxes, very big ones. Then we vote for them. Even when it happened, our main woman who is supposed to be the MP to visit us, he never visited us.
You're talking about Tina?
Tina. He never visited us to see what is actually happening. So we are just there like that.
Interesting comments coming through from an opinion leader. Please let me just sit in between you and also bring in my brother here, Mr. Gbomita, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Achuk Gbomita, thank you for joining the conversation. For you, what do you think about everything that happened here? And since it happened, what was the impact? How have you been coping?
To be honest with you, we've been in this for, let me say, for decades.
How long have you lived here?
I've lived here for the past 30 years plus. And the last time I noticed this was 1991, the first time.
Wow.
Which was very serious. People were out of the place because they were informed that the dam was going to be spilled. And, you know, they find a way to evacuate, you see. And sometimes where around 97, you know, it used to happen. But by then there was, some sort of coordinating between the Ghana Water and the community. Right. You see, they do bring their vehicle and then sit with the opinion leaders. And at the end of the day, the opinion leaders also relay to the community. And then, you know, what we have to do, we do it. But this time around, it was so serious. And, you know, for all you know, Ghana Water has given meters to people living here. We are all connected to the, what do you call it, Ghana Water Company in this thing. And therefore, if there is anything, we are customers. The customer is always right. They have to, deal with less like customers. But they can't just build it and then, you know, everything come to a halt. There was no business. Cars could not move. People were, you know, stuck in their rooms. We have to use the canoe to evacuate some of them, which was bad.
Should this happen again, how will you be able to cope?
I don't think it should happen again.
But you know, they've told us that if the rain continues heavily in the eastern region, it will also mean that once it shoots up to capacity, the Weija Dam, they will have to spill again. How are you going to cope?
Well, as we manage to cope with this, I know when we get there, we cross that one too.
All the way across that bridge, entering this community, was flooded. In fact, if you had to come into this community, you would have to use a canoe. There was no life here. No one was going out. If you had to move, you had to use a canoe until after some days, the waters had receded. And that is where, as he was pointing to, this is where the cooking was ongoing. This is where members of the community, we brought you some of that footage when the flooding happened. And you can see some masses of wires and, you know, I think copper and all of that. This is where the cooking happened, just to keep body and soul together for members of the community. Now, you can even look at this wall right here, this green building. You can see at the bottom, the watermark. That is what the flooding did to this community. No one could come out. Basically, if you were inside, you were trapped. And you can still see, at least in this direction where the sheep are passing, you can still see that the place is a bit wet. That is what this community in Old Tetegu had to go through. And so we're here gauging the mood of community members, and they have made it loud and clear that, in fact, they are not leaving this place. They are not going anywhere. This is their home. And they just want the right things to be done. One, the Ghana Water Company Limited must ensure that when spilling is going to be done, they are actually informed. Let's come over. I see some workers in this area that I'll just try to engage with. Senior, good morning all. Do you live in this community?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Yes, I've not moved in yet.
You've not moved in yet, but you're moving in here?
Sure.
Okay, so that's an interesting one. Some are crying that the community is on fire and you are now moving in. What do you think about the latest flooding situation? What happened here and all of that? What do you make of it?
It was very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. I think the whole thing happened unexpectedly. You know, normally when they are going to spill, they tell, you know, they inform the community this is going to happen. You know, for the past days, it hasn't been like this. I mean, past years. You know, when they spill, it comes, but like at a very low level. Yeah, but I think the last time this thing happened was in '92. About 33 years over, but this one was just too much. Yeah, so it happened unexpectedly. That's why a lot of people lost a lot of their properties, you know, yes. But there are some areas that are high. It didn't actually get to anybody's room. But, you know, you can actually come out and walk because of the level of the water, yes.
So as you move here, I'm sure this is a concern for you. What is your plan?
My plan is just to raise my building because I know the level, just in case in the near future anything like that happens. Yeah, I have a house here, but actually it wasn't flooding. Water didn't because it was raised. People that are very low, there were people that were more affected. Yeah, but people with the high raising ones, it's just the compounds. Yeah.
Go from what I say inside the ninya me rented dynama obi no mo hanum o man fa pin po inside the hanum o man kraye so mba bu nsu nti ya nyina ya ni ya nya hwi wo hanum ya protect ya ho ansa na nsu na ba what I say so mo mba bu nsu a o mo kraye na so we di e o man kra ya wo honum an o ma frese ya free kronum ya nkwahin o mo so o ma obi nsu no endu 1 hour time. He's a
landlord here, and as you can even see from behind us, you see people airing their mattresses, blankets, clothes, footwear, and all of that. And also behind me, you can see a stagnant pool of water right behind me where, you know, plastic containers and others are. You can also see some mattresses being aired there. All of these are remnants, basically, what some people could salvage. But he was pointing out to me that right in front of me, where we just came from, they had to use wooden planks and others at some point when the waters had receded for them to be able to cross. But before that, the entire place was flooded. He says there was a fence wall all around here, broken by the floodwaters. He also mentioned to me that they were told just about 1 hour ahead of the spillage. So they were told, and in about an hour's time, the floodwaters hit, and there was nothing anyone could do. That those in this house, which he is owner of, could salvage nothing, not even a pin. Let's go into the compound house and find out what exactly the place looks like. So here we are in this compound house here in Old Tetegu, and you can see even from the mud and right behind me, you can see the scenes from there. This entire place was engulfed completely in flood waters as the spillage happened. Agofia, I'm here in this place, and if you look here, you see a number of books and even a laptop. Nothing was salvaged. These are the remnants. This is what is left. But let me engage this lady here who will be telling us more about what exactly happened. Morning, all.
Good morning.
Pacho Efro saying?
Mede Belinda Ayi.
Belinda Ayi. Na niema we wa hey ayodia.
Pacha ebisu ye minwanum kumadia omu na omu ko SHS ni ade. Ye books ni ade na say ye certificates mi kra mi set mi wie school ni na say.
Ewa he.
Mi wie school ejuma ko besianse na mi junior sister so wie wo over time e wo voter ni set na say chese books bebre ye mpa ni ade bibia say nti nyema bi wo no ma wo se damage ni na nti sisi ani na asa beyeka e na menwan kuma no so ebi ma bia school last week Friday no mo bia school so mo ko school but because of flood nearby ni nti no e wo so mo na atwem because asaka ko yes kasembio nti sisi ano ye hwe de aban beye de aboa ye wofo because say aska so ni ho e na asasem we na abanti yesra aban say emo akakra no so wo de beboa ya wofo ama matumi ahwe me nuanom kuma ne ye nyina no omo mfa amo akakra mbra na skaka yeso ye won ne enfembo ati kakra me so me wo ameka no.
So basically what she's saying is, yes, she's graduated from SHS. She has siblings who are also in SHS. And these are their books. And this is what is left of them. And they are saying that they are in dire need and they need help. They need government to intervene because this situation is beyond them. They weren't aware of this spillage and now they have to contend with this disaster that has befallen them. So they need help. That is the bottom line. But yenshe inti aha mihu dictionary ewo ahanomo 1992 constitution ewo ha where you there. Okay, so a copy of the 1992 constitution is here. History book.
Yes. Okay. And then we have a Longman dictionary and then literature notes on, and then we have our laptops, also sports, mathematics, other stuffs. So we seek the government to help us so that we can accommodate whatever that we've lost.
So this is an Intel Core i5 computer, HP computer. What on about saying?
Our uncle brothers like or if you are abroad nearby, like you see, I said now we can't say the price for now, but I say what we can say now is we need help. I say cry because the coin almost to me, and I even cry so nipa no bet to me I ni na is kasem. Bibia say a kind na yemboa and I pay. Si amboa na ye here. A school for whom our force nyama baby I say, and na mammy cracked on nam like in nama or what fridge a door soon you buy ni na say ya damaging in na.
So mammy or cold store.
Like and your coast or far at the bar be chef fridge no a ton in kakanga. Ya buy ni na say it's lapia pork like in yama baby nyama or ton in na say ya damaging in 19 I yes kasem tisia ye yamboa kakra yesu ebetumi akano.
And so Belinda is telling me that, of course, they're still counting their losses. This computer supposedly was supplied by an uncle, many thousands of CDs. Now it's gone. It's beyond redemption from what they've been told by someone they sent it to for fixing. And she's also saying that practically they've lost everything. She's talking about her mother who sells, frozen products, fish, tilapia to be specific, pork, among other things, and how that she took a loan for that, and now all of that meat, the fish and meat products, have also all been destroyed. But let's get into the rooms and find out how exactly, what the extent of damage was. Auntie Manza. What day money? Yes, sir.
But why?
Inti da we no see no. Church me saying they see the important they see.
You can't you just say because ne a bounce a back wanting what pay. Inti na it's na in se between by inside. Inti you just who say a buaba a denim. Inti your mattress near there. Just say na you pay any mana any ye. And so no and buy the hanging me dressing mirror. I say wardrobe. Nina. I say, in sooner I am in and say it to glass no. A dear see one. A hangila TV in there lucky and ye a pajadi see as roentino, TV in the peddy and their ancano. Fridge near the Nina in sooner a cornet ninimo. A hanging as a sea, yeda, because my dressing in I say, yeda and panosa. Yeda and panibianosa.
Me who say Matoto mattress be a good eche honomo. What they account?
Nina say. Nina Sunsna Ayano, ya has a crying, in sooner soaking sa, any bibia and ye. See, wait, a capacity air for fry, I could touch say, Uncolanda so sa. A baby and so. A catanum diatoswa. I that's
with me, I must be me.
Because my dressing yan, I say, my dressing ya for. I found that ain't been the Johnson, sir, and yet that's can sir. You never say, So enye table kwa na save ye nima kakra po a because na enim say ebetimi ewura hasa nti ya ma enima nso entam ye nipa aso na kese nsu no ewura da a ese enima da me fine na asay because etonso nim e ma akom fat ye ho ache wo mu si ye wonsu but de bi eba ye nim say o metimi abie ma na abewura edem ho sa amana asese ye nima mpabo ni nyina nsu akoni nyina mafi asa ye guso a ye hata enima ni nyina nti wo de mesram a ye hiamwa dada ye mfro obi amwa but asa nsu no na ama we nyina atoye momwaye nsu no eba bedida ha se ebedida ha mo hwe line na ena e ho ebedida ha nyina nti wintimi kura enwram nsu na bon because bon nti kura wintimi eni abebre ho a wintimi usi kura enyeye asai enti we die mesram a mo hwe so na ye niam asai na enye ye na ye bo yetim kasa bia asai ni man kasa asai wo hwe edan we hwe se na edan ho nyina kra nsu na ma edan ho nyina ewa e proprogu edan mu hase enti momwaye pa momwaye monya ba abehwa ma yenko ade me so machine me pa ma de so machine nyina nsu nyina akokom ense eni nyina asese nti we de mesram
sewing machine no untimi nyuzu bio
nsu akonti ni nyina je se ye tutu na edigwa bonte se be yo se enye yo se ndi na ya to ahwere
Pacho edin no bio
Auntie Mansa.
So Aunt Mansa here is telling me about, you can see the line where the water rose to, and she says it was totally unexpected because they did not think, it doesn't happen that way. They did not think it would get into the rooms proper. They felt it would just remain at the compound, you know, and they would be able to deal with it. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. It slammed into the rooms, and before they could say Jack, it was inside the rooms. There was nothing they could do, nothing to be redeemed. She was fortunate, like she mentions, that her television, because of that table there, they were able to prop it up, but everything else was consumed. The very bedding she lies on, there's no mattress. In fact, I'll take you to where the mattress was dumped, and they have to lie on the wood of the bed stand, basically. That is all they have. And she says this was very smelly water, and so even for some of those things that they felt they could have salvaged after washing, after this and that, there was nothing that could be done. They're simply lost. She talks about her sewing machine as well, as you can see right down here. And she's saying the water went into it, and now even if she's going to be able to redeem that, this is what she uses for work. Basically, it might need a lot of work to be done on it. That is the situation with them here. And she's saying they need help. At Aunt Paulina's room, she wasn't spared either. Let's get into her room. Agovia.
Your TV ni we obi TV kwa nded your TV a fry TV ni na nso akonya to ache ne
Inti ye be ko dem ho na emomu no aha no inti mattress no
ye kwala books na ade asese ni na tu egu we ya ndra na amanfo be chen nkaka kakra bi eje ye bi da so we inside ha e bibia say
just say bibia
ya we ya ndra na amanfo ya soro fa odonfo ma odondom nkwala ya eja ye wo bibi and peme be dashe me kokro ni eni hwe TV bibia hwa adan sisi ehu adan won ba bia nso ni kopeme an bibia ye fridge bibia sai fridge oso anso ntini edin na
fridge nso asai
oso anso nti andra ma on said nkwafo mpa abasa mbatoto endo mbeto obi na ya na abochifo endo ma mbasa se gu a yen hu ne yen fanye onti esema amondo me yewa mande nkwala ekosku SS4 books ni asai shom tank ni nsu akokom onti esrem mondo mbo ayen wa esrem wa ne die mo yen
woman bi wa akwamumana na mehu secondary akwamuman SHS
bema mema menu ena oba ne gina he we ba ko waketa ena we akwamuman ena ba ko so nyifa nti mondo mbwa we mando makusku me hu nyame ya na ma meton me chipo akokwan ni na asem kutuegu
as in insuo no ba no na abe she fridge ni
se omudim light no say endum light na program baba ntina ni na say we have friends am call nem call say menya bosia bi akopa bi na eja wo mbako school menya kakra bi anti srem ene di mama mbo ayen wa srem pa e di ankopon ni pam cha.
So Aunt Paulina, this is her room, and as bare as you can see it, they've lost quite a lot. They've lost quite a lot. And the simple point to be made is that the floodwaters came in here, took practically everything. For her, the most important bit is that she had a freezer that she was using for her meat business, pork, fish, and all of that. It came, it went in, and of course they had to, the lights went off. So everything basically went rotten. She couldn't salvage anything. It means her means of livelihood is also gone. Now she's been forced to sell the scrap basically to those who come for scrap metal and all of that. There's nothing left. She has 3 children in senior high school, in Nifa, in Akwamuman, and Ketasco. So basically, this is a very tricky situation for them. And she's also calling for help from whoever is going to be able to come to their aid, whether it is government, whether it is any philanthropist, whether it is any grouping that will come to their assistance. But right here, they need help. And that's what she's talking about. And I think if you take a look right there, you would see the wall, which actually has broken. So the point she's making to me is that they had to dump most of their property that can't be redeemed. They had to dump them right here. This water was not here. So they've been forced to, because basically the water had inundated the entire place, taken over the whole place. So they had to dump them here. It's created not the best of scenes, but when I made mention of the fact that they would have to take these away to prevent further problems in future, they mentioned that they just want the waters to recede. And when the waters recede, then they will burn all of these items. But if you look right here, they were talking about the wall that got broken, the fence wall that got broken, as they put it. And you would see clearly, if you take a look from here, you would see that portion of the wall which has broken. And that is all on the back of the power of the floodwaters, which took over this entire compound. And this is the result. We're still here in Old Tetegu, this large expanse of land where tens of thousands have made their home. Currently, we're at the Great Bright Minds School, and this entire street that you see, I am told, was totally inundated. Students couldn't come to school. In fact, the entire place was like a pool. This was what the state was. But at least now, thanks to the sun that is up, it is drying up after so many days, after about a week. I am here together with Magnus, a teacher at the Great Bright Minds School. Magnus, thanks for joining the conversation.
You're welcome, sir.
Right. So paint a picture. What exactly did this place look like when the floodwaters hit?
Okay, so it was basically at your knee level. That is where
knee level?
Yes, the water was at our knee level. And the current was so high, so it was very difficult to walk through it. Yeah.
So basically nothing that children would be able to wade through or something to come to school, obviously. So you had to shut down.
Yeah, it's impossible for kids to walk through it to school. It wasn't safe at all. So we had to shut down for all that time that the water was being spilled. Yeah.
I'm sure you've taught here for a while. What has the experience been whenever there's a spillage of the Weija Dam?
It has been serious, but this one has been catastrophic because the levels were so high that the kids couldn't walk through. Anytime there's a spillage, they control it, so the kids were able to walk to school. It was a normal thing, but this time it was so serious. They couldn't walk to school. Yeah.
So tell me, you had no idea this was going to happen, did you?
No, we were not pre-informed. We were not pre-informed. Usually they alert us that they will spill the dam maybe a day or two, but this time it was taken on our way.
So it affected you, it affected all the members of the community, but there's a curious question about the estuary. You would expect that when they're going to spill, they would open the estuary so that it can accommodate, quite a bit of the flow. I am told when the estuary is open, once there's a flood here, once the estuary is opened, the flood waters just ease through. Why do you think this is not done ahead of the spillage?
That is why I'm surprised with the management of the people who spill the water.
So the Ghana Water Company Limited.
The Ghana Water Company Limited. Because what I know is what they are supposed to do is that they are supposed to consult the chief priest at that location who has to perform some rites. Then the excavator can pave the way for the water to go into the sea. But this wasn't done. And anytime it's not done, that is when the water cannot flow into the sea. That it caused so much serious problems for the residents in the area. Okay, so if they were proactive to have dug the tunnel, consulted the chief priest, and everything was done, it would have been very easy for everyone. Okay, and people are saying that this is no area for people to reside. It's not true. Okay, this area it's okay. Just that if the management of the spillage is done well, everything will be fine for the rest.
So to cap it all off, how do we resolve this entire situation? The residents here say they have every right to be here. In fact, some of these communities have been here for over 2 centuries, 3 centuries, long before the Weija Dam. But right now, with the flooding situation on the back of the spillage of the Weija Dam, they feel hard done by. What do we do? We're going to proffer some solutions. We have an opinion leader to my left, an opinion leader to my right. We'll find out what solutions they have to proffer. Thank you for joining us. What's your name?
I'm Joshua.
All right, Joshua. From your end, you're an opinion leader. You are respected in this community. What is the way forward to prevent something like this from happening again? Someone died. Property has been lost. How do we prevent this from recurring?
Okay. The MC mentioned the other time that they have to dredge the River Densu thoroughly. Yeah, I think if that is done and they spill the water, it will just go into the river. It will not overflow its banks and enter into the community. And aside that, they have to open the estuary because they know the level that the water is supposed to be before they start spilling. So once it gets into that level, they have to go and open the estuary. Once that is open and they spill the water, it will not come into the community. So they have to do that before even opening the dam. Because the government has invested so much into this community. They are putting up a hospital. They are putting up a school. We have electricity here. We have water here. We have 2 police stations in this community. So if this is not a place for us to settle, then why is the government investing that much into this community? Okay, so when it rains, we don't have any problem here until they spill the water from the dam. So I think Ghana Water must have some consultation with the leaders. Before they spill the water, they should be pre-informed so that we can act accordingly.
So let me come to Weija. So you've been with us right from the start. What are your quick solutions for as far as this problem is concerned?
Yes, like Mr. Joshua rightly said, the river needs to be dredged so that it can get its normal depth, which is the 25 feet, which will not make the water to overflow its banks. And then we need to do embankment across the river as well. And then thirdly, they need to work on the estuary to make it a permanent place like the Kole Lagoon is. We need to work towards that direction because every year they will spill the dam, and then when the water is not getting access into the sea, it flows over into the community. And during that time, before they will be looking for money or resources to go and then open the estuary. And sometimes they get there and the chief priest around the area will refuse them access to go and open it, which normally causes a lot of...
It is clear that this community needs help. And they, like I mentioned, they feel hard done by because when it rains, this is not a community that gets flooded. It's a slopey area, so the rain naturally tapers off. But they are saying when there's a spillage of the dam, that is where the problem starts. So a quick alert, letting the community know the opening of the estuary and communication with the members of the community, especially its leadership, are key, crucial in stemming the tide of this problem. It is clear that we do not want to see this again. Members of the community don't want to see this happen again, recur. But the question is, will these engagements yield the results that they hope for, especially as the threat of another spillage should the rain continue in the eastern region, which will let the dam's waters rise again at Weija. Only time will tell. From out here in Old Tetegu, I am Benjamin Akakpo for Joy News.
Welcome back to the studio. It's now time to have a discussion on this. Like Benjamin said, there are many solutions that have been preferred. We are being told by the Ghana Water Company Limited that there will be a likely spillage, but the company is denying the allegations that it's to blame for the recent floods. And so it's just a back and forth. But what's the way forward? Because real lives are involved, people's properties are involved, and this needs to be fixed as soon as possible. We've been joined by Peter Kumo, who is NCE for Weija Gbawe. Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning, sir. Hello, Mr. Kumo? Hello? Well, we appear to be having a challenge with Mr. Kumo's line, Benjamin. But the interesting thing about this issue of flooding and spillage is that there's something that appears to be happening globally. And I'm just looking at a story on VOA about Nigeria flooding, leaving more than 500 dead and 1.4 million displaced. Now, here's why I'm bringing this in, because we were told that it's a couple of factors: heavy rains and a spillage of a dam. I think somewhere in Cameroon, somewhere in Cameroon. So there appears to be something happening, and we need to look at it. The weather pattern.
They are obviously changing. That's why climate change is becoming a serious situation. I don't know whether you recall Pakistan earlier this year. Different countries have been affected, and especially on the continent, it's become a huge problem. And it's quite a number of things that we're grappling with. So climate change, some places are facing drought. Others are facing flooding. Others are facing erratic weather patterns and all of that. And bottom line, it's disastrous. And in the Nigerian situation this morning, I was listening to the BBC, and some places, they were grappling for the little food. And this wasn't even food they could, because their staple, they prefer gari and the rest. This person was offering them maize. People, there almost was a stampede. I mean, it's a terrible situation.
And that's where we want to get to. I'm told rather that we've been joined by Dr. Anthony Chumesi. He's a hydrologist with the Kumasi Technical University. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Doc. Like Benjamin and I were just discussing, there appears to be a global problem when it comes to floods in recent times, and coupled with spillage of dams and natural rainfall. Obviously, spillage of dams caused by so much water coming in, so the need to spill. From where you sit, what has the pattern been in the past, and what are the changes that we are seeing?
Well, good morning to you and our panelists on this show. I just thought, and I've spoken about some of these issues for quite a while. The issue about flooding, especially in terms of our dams and our reservoirs, actually come because of so many other factors. In the past, if you go seriously about how the reservoirs are constructed, the dams are made, it is based on the fact that most of these designs were done with the fact that the areas were not paved, there were a lot of vegetation, and as time goes on, people come to live around the catchment areas. What happens is that they actually impede the infiltration of water into the underground systems. And the process, they all come as runoff. So you definitely have the dams and reservoirs to be going up because they will exceed the capacity which they were designed. And indeed, if people will think, and as my colleague on the panel said, because of climate change, things are changing. And there are a lot of things which will happen. And because of the fact that you don't want to look at it in that perspective, we are still thinking that the rains will come and nothing will happen. The rains are changing in terms of the intensity. Intensity of rainfall is going high, and because of the areas are paved, and because of also the people who want to live around the areas, we're going to have some of these problems now and again. And if I can suggest, if you remember, I remember that if you go to Kumasi, those particular areas of West, like Owabi and Barikesi, if you go there, the people who designed the reservoirs had actually put maybe something like what do you call it, a forest around it, so that the areas will have the necessary vegetation, and then definitely the dam will not be exceeding its capacity. But people are started living around the areas. Some of the areas were demolished. They've come back. So you see that if this trend continues, what you're going to see is that you have the reservoirs reaching its maximum capacity. And in the process, and definitely they will also have to spill the water if it is getting to that particular height. Definitely they will have to. So those downstream of those reservoirs will have the challenge. So I think that we need to look at it from so many factors, perspectives, and see what we can do for us as a nation. Otherwise, you will sit down tomorrow, things will happen, and the change will not be there for us to see. So I think that for me, if you ask me, first and foremost, you should look at, because recently there were some of my students at K University. They did some work and around these Weija dams, and they saw that there's also sedimentation levels going higher. So if you can look at that also for as a start, whether we can destroy some of these reservoirs, and then when you do that, then you look at whether people living around the areas can also give us space for the things to rather. Some of them will voluntarily leave for us to demolish the properties, or they stay there for us to have these challenges now and again. So that's what I think we should be doing.
Beyond clearing up the reservoirs so that they can collect water anytime we have a spillage or heavy rains, what else can be done? The concerns were raised about the estuary and the fact that at the time the dam was spilled, the estuary was blocked, and so the water could not enter the sea, and so it had to take NADMO and a couple other residents in the area to do that. Ideally, what are the protocols involved? If you have to spill a dam, say in an area like Weija, what should the expectation be? And even whose responsibility is it to ensure that all these things are properly done? The reservoir, the silted, the estuary open.
Yeah, you see, one of the agents which may be responsible for some of these things will be the Water Resource Commission. But insofar as they have given their mandate to maybe Ghana Water Company to have the reservoirs, they think that maybe it is for them to. But if you look at it from this perspective, I think for now, as you're talking about the estuary and the situation in the dam, I believe that people who have knowledge in this field, must be put together and look at it, whether the solutions can come from these angles. Because the point is that in this country, I always keep on saying that when people are designing so many things, like anything which is embankment or whatever, revolving water, they don't necessarily involve hydrologists in these issues. So what happens is that you come to see that people will sit in the office and make some of these designs, and at a certain point, they may not work to suit the situation. So if you ask me for the estuary, yes, we can look at the estuary, look at the cetaceans, and then look at what we can do as experts in the field, so that at least we can have an idea about whether, if you want to spill the dam, if you achieve the maximum flows, then the reservoirs, the estuary will be there for us to take care of that. But for now, I think that as this has happened, we have the rains have subsided a little. We have more time. Let's take maybe a few days and months to sit down as experts in the field and come up with probable solutions, so that by next year or another time when this may occur, we have had the solution, so that when it comes, the impact may not be huge, as we have seen from this particular spillage. So, to me, people in the hydrology sector must come together, engineers in the field must, so that we congregate within the Water Resource Commission as the agency which is responsible for all these water bodies, so that we look at how we are going to address these challenges. And I think that when you do that, because the moment you start doing that, then you see that you have a national discourse, and the solutions that are going to come may not be coming from only one agency or a group. It may be like a global view, and we all take decisions. And I think that when you do that, you have experts. Engineering solutions are always there. And after a spillage and if disaster, and if you go to US, they sometimes happen because people will not understand and stay away from where the catchment area. But the same way, they still come up with solutions. So the engineers are there, there's hydrologists are there. You can sit down and actually address these challenges. It should not be seen as if we have thrown our hands in this. Last I was in the program with somebody on one of the channels, and the way the person was speaking, as if everything is finished. I said, no, we can have solutions. So you need to sit down and then look at all the possible ways and avenues that you can channel these waters into, including the estuary that we are discussing, including the cities that we can do. So I think that's the way I think we should go.
Doc, the residents we've spoken to say, I mean, obviously this is not the first time water from the dam is being spilled. However, they see this time the volumes were so much and they didn't have enough notice. These decisions that are taken to spill the dam, I mean, considering that at the time it was also raining, have an impact on people's lives. We lost one person, and as we just saw, people's properties were also destroyed. Is there any laid down procedure for spillage of dams?
Well, there is.
Or protocols, let me put it that way. Are there any laid down protocols that must be followed? Yes.
You see, I don't know the management of the reservoir, but what happens is that if you look at the pattern and look at the rainfalls and the flooding that is coming, sometimes you have early warning. You have to give early warning. And you see it by the fact that you see that maybe today you go, because there are gauges in these particular reservoirs to know how the pattern is going. You see that when today you are in about 10 meters, tomorrow you are in 15 meters. Then you see that there's possibility that you are going to get to the maximum level because you have taken care of everything, but still the water is. So you give the people early warning for them to leave the place that at a certain point, I will spill. You can't just say that because you sit down, you don't monitor the flow into the reservoirs and to check and see. When you see that the rivers have overflown, then you decide that I will just spill. And I was listening to some of the views of the people in the management of the reservoir. I think their point is that they are giving the people the chance to, or they have to leave the place. They have to demolish and yes, well, because of that, they don't seem to have anything again. They have told them to leave the place for a long time. And if they are not leaving, anytime they can spill. But I think it's wrong. What they should do is that, insofar as they have not gone, you need to give full notice. You see, maybe about 2 weeks, they are telling them that the flood levels are going high, please, can you evacuate from those areas? And then when you give them the warning, and then if you not only say it in the air, you go to the community with a van to tell them that, please, these are the things which may happen. So can you leave the place for now for us to look at how things happen? And then after that period, and they have all left, then you can decide to, okay, let me spill a certain amount of volume of water. Maybe so many cubic meters I want to spill. So that the damage will not be high. But if you sit down and you are overwhelmed with the flooding levels and you are overwhelmed with the level of your dam and it's going high, and the moment if it collapses, it's also going to be a big issue. So you don't want it to collapse, but you ought to have known that these are the levels coming. So I need to educate and advise people to leave the place.
Dr.
So
Chumesi,
there are protocols. And I think I think sometimes they are also annoyed with the way they have told the people in the community that, please, this is not your area, evacuate, and let's leave the catchment area. So sometimes they think, oh, if it comes, let's spill. And whatever happens, it happens. Because when I was listening to that person who was speaking for the management, that's what I saw in his discussion, that they have told them, leave the place, you are not leaving. But there are protocols. And people are dying because of sometimes the things that what you have done, which you didn't do. So that's what I think. There are protocols, indeed.
Dr. Chumesi, very quickly, I just want you to address this very quickly so I can bring in Dr. Abrahams as well, who is Chief Basin Officer, Water Resources Commission. So there's a talk about the sedimentation levels, which you brought up, and how the Densu itself, and even if they are going to use the Bojo Beach area, there's a lot of desilting work that must be done. In other words, the Densu, in terms of what it can take, I hear 25 feet has now become less than 10 feet. So it means 10 meters. So it means that with just a little water, the water body will not be able to take anymore. It will spill over. The other bit is we hear that some hydrologists were brought into the area some years ago. It could be quite a long time ago. And hydrologists were involved. There was a World Bank project that was supposed to take off to address this particular situation. Is it something you would have any knowledge of? That's for you, Dr. Chumesi.
Yeah.
Did you get the question?
Yeah, I didn't get the question. Can you say it now again? Because
So years back, we are told some hydrologists were invited to come and make an assessment in terms of the spillage and the problem it creates in these communities. And that it was supposed to be a World Bank funded project to take care of the problem, dredging and other things that had to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be aware of this visit, this project?
Well, as far as I know, I'm not aware of that project. But as I said, my students at KMSC, I had the students who were doing some project for me. The students who were doing some project for me at KMSC. And it was based on their research that they just gave to me that the Weija Dam, and for that matter, the Densu, is certain. And as you said, the moment it's filtered, if it's filtered, it means you have lost a certain volume on the base. So, as you said, when there's a small flooding, you see that the water level will get to the maximum. So, as far as the Weija Dam and the Densu River is concerned, I have not worked in that area for now. And I think if we need to do something, then we are all there. We will be happy to be part of the team which is going to look at the challenges and address them. So for now, I think I don't have any idea about what happened in the World Bank. Sometimes when the World Bank projects come, people can hijack them and then maybe they do their own things. But I'm not aware of this.
Dr. Chumesi, we're grateful for your time, hydrologist with the Kumasi Technical University. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Also joining us, we have Dr. Ronald Abrahams, Chief Basin Officer, Water Resources Commission. Dr. Abrahams, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. I'm around, yes.
Great. So as Chief Basin Officer, I'd start from the standpoint of what exactly your role is when it comes to the spillage of the dams. Like Dr. Chumesi has mentioned, you have some roles to play, but you cede them to the Ghana Water Company Limited. What exactly is the interplay between your commission and the Ghana Water Company Limited? What do you do when a dam has to be spilled?
Yes, I think the Ghana Water Company Limited is a major water user for us. And we issue permits relating to the water abstraction. And then we are also interested in the dam safety, which is why spillage is inevitable, because when the water level gets to the threshold, the dam will have to be, the sluice gates will have to be opened to allow some water to get out, because as a class 4 dam, if it breaches, the consequences will be very difficult or serious. So that we have also taken note of the silting, and we are working very seriously on the dredging process. Currently, the Dutch government has actually taken up the challenge to dredge, and we are on the pre-feasibility study. The World Bank process, which started some long time ago, I think fizzled out. It didn't really work out as expected. So
is that the one I was referencing that you're speaking of?
Yes.
So how long ago was this? I'm sorry, but how long ago was this?
Oh, this is just within this year. You know, the past 3-4 months, we are on the pre-feasibility. We finished the pre-feasibility. We are on the feasibility, and very soon we'll begin the dredging process so that we allow more volume, and then we continue to moderate the operation of the dam. We issue dam safety license to the Ghana Water Company and all other companies or entities that are into the management of dams. So we look at dam safety as well. And as I said earlier, the Weija Dam has been classified as a Class 4 dam, so that when the need arises, within some 5-6 hours of heavy rain, some spillage will have to be done. Anytime there is a need to spill water, the Ghana Water Company Limited goes to the communities downstream and advise them to vacate their places, because naturally those areas shouldn't be the habitation of human beings, because
So
please
explain two things to me. First of all,
yes,
I spoke to the people in the community. They say they were not aware. They were simply caught pants down, because from the time they heard that the spillage was taking place to when the floodwaters hit them, it was just about 1 hour.
Yeah.
1 hour. So we've heard time and again the Ghana Water Company Limited saying we told them.
It depends on the intensity of the rain. Within a short time, some precipitation can occur which will warrant emergency announcement, and no matter how hard you try to announce on some of these things, you will realize that a few people will tell you they didn't hear the announcement. But the Ghana Water Company does the announcement prior to the spillage of the dam. And this particular...
Do you know for certain how long it took before the spillage happened? Between the announcement and...
Normally, when there is a heavy rain around the eastern region, from Kofredua and Sawam and Sum and all over, they all drain into the Weija Lake. And then this time around, we had it in the 3 main regions where that receive water from the into the Weija Dam. For instance, when it rains in the central region, there is a stream which brings the water into the area. We have the Jai River, and then we have the Okrudu River. We also have the Dinsu, which is the main one, and then the Dinsu is actually also fed by the Nsaki. So when you look at the area properly, you also notice that from the Makati Hill area, we have the Lafa stream, or the Lafa River, which also drains into the Dinsu Delta Ramsar site. So if it rains heavily in the 3 regions, Eastern Accra and then the central region, you will notice that all of the waters will drain into the Weija area, and the dam will take a lot of it, and some also run straight into the Ramsar site, the Dinsu Delta Ramsar site, which creates the problem. So that we only advise that entities like the Pambro salt industry should be there. In the dry season, they are able to do their salt, but not communities such as Tetegu, Fana, Glefe, and all the others, Chokome, and the rest, because those areas are meant to actually accommodate flood waters. And precisely so, that is what happened just about 2 weeks ago, when it rained all over, and then the dam will have to be opened. Actually, it has 5 gates.
Okay.
And the threshold was actually hit, and they have to open 4 of the gates to allow the water to flow. Initially, they opened it up to 60 inches. It's an old dam, so they are still using the imperial system. And then when the waters actually were down a bit, it was reduced to 36. So now they are operating 36 inches. So that is the situation. And this is actually giving the warning that communities will have to actually advise themselves and desist from living in those zones. Because some who have built houses, and then these are completed houses, have decided to abandon their homes because the flooding was actually perennial.
Dr. Abrahams, let's address two crucial issues that you bring up very quickly on this one. You speak about the fact that, so I would like you to start from the World Bank project you spoke of. What exactly is it about? And then the second bit I want you to look at. You say this place is not meant for habitation. Why exactly is that? First of all, the people are mentioning that you say the place is not meant for habitation. Some of these settlements were there about 2 centuries before the construction of the dam. That's the first point. The next point is, if you say this is not a place meant for habitation, like I was at Old Tetegu yesterday, the people have water. The Ghana Water Company Limited is connected to them. They have electricity. They have 2 police stations. I hear there is a hospital that is being built by government. If this is a place where people shouldn't live, why take all of these facilities there? It means that there is some acceptance that, you know, these people, this is a habitable community. They also add that when it comes to the time for voting, ballot boxes are brought there. So the people are a bit confused. You are saying they shouldn't live there, yet you are putting all these resources there. Something doesn't add up.
Okay, when you look at our forefathers, those who lived in the areas before we came on board, they respected reservations. They even regarded them as deities, and they respected them. But we have actually tried to say that these things are devilish, and then modernity and Christianity is actually throwing some of these strong beliefs aside, and people are doing what they like. Of course, technology is also part of the problem, because people think with technology you can live anywhere, but we haven't done due diligence as far as those things are concerned. So we need to look at what type of buildings can be there before people start their houses in the area. So, as I said earlier, there was a World Bank project that tried to dredge, but it didn't work out well. Currently, we are into talks with the Dutch government that has bought into the whole idea. And as I said, we've done the pre-feasibilities. We are now on the feasibility phase, and after which the actual implementation of the dredging process will begin. So we need to remind ourselves that when we declare areas as a Ramsar site or as a reservation, even we were established in 1996. And at the time we took over the management of the what we call the acquisition around the dam, it was a built-up area to a large extent, and the people have made efforts to continue the process, even though we have tried very hard to get the information to them through community debates, mobile vans, and all of that, through stress and demolitions, which don't actually get completed. So we've done a lot of work, and we are still on the job trying to get everybody to understand that these areas are supposed to be no-go areas around the dam, which is a reservation, because when you take a little steady tour around the upper reaches of the lake, you will notice that flooding has occurred around the Shalaja and all the environs. And then I also took particular notice of homes that are not within the acquisition but are still flooded. And people have put blocks on there, even up to now, getting to about 2 weeks now that we had those rains. People are still troubled in their homes because there are still flood waters on their compound. So we need to actually bring ourselves to a situation where we'll accept directives from people who know the hydrology and then the ecology of the place. That these are no-go areas, and we have to respect them. But we are making effort to re-engineer some places and then ensure that the dredging comes on so that the dam can take more. The wetlands is a battleground because people are selling, and it's the same disorderly nature of our neighborhood that people are still interested in buying land.
Dr. Abrahams, I wouldn't have come in. I wouldn't have come in again. Bernice, my colleague, will be coming in shortly. But on the back of what you're saying, are you saying that the simple solution is these people should just relocate? They should leave the community. Is that what you're saying?
They should relocate. They shouldn't allow anybody to force them out of those areas. They should just relocate. And then
hello, Doc. Hello, Doc.
Advise others that we have learned our lesson. I went to the Netherlands, and there was a similar situation there. And they actually called it "Give the water bodies space." Mansions were being demolished because it is flood-prone area, and we are not isolated in this matter. It happens all over the world.
Right.
Look at what happened in Pakistan recently. When we notice these things, when these things come to the fore, and then if we have actually violated some admonitions to leave these areas, and then we are confronted head on with such, we should just advise ourselves and depart. Because if we actually see this as a climate change natural disasters, then it will continue because the climate change process is with us. Sometimes we experience intense drought, long dry spells, which we call El Nino. And these things should lead us to advise ourselves. We have said that sometime when there is even water shortage, we should resort to, intra and interbasin water transfers. In the same manner, when there are flooding situations which are repetitive, every year we get them, it should actually serve as warning notices to us. And then we reorganize ourselves and depart these areas because these trends might not change for a very long time.
Right,
the moment you begin getting flooding, it means it will continue. And then if it happens 1, 2, 3, 4 years, that should ring a bell to serve as a kind of warning so that you don't actually invest your hard-won resources in such areas.
Dr. Abrahams, Bernice here. I mean, people moving from these areas that you're speaking about is not as simple as we saying they should move. There are those who have invested money in properties, offices, and I mean, you would want to admit, as many people have said, that government is complicit in this matter. Benjamin has just told us how even some projects initiated by government are happening in those same areas that we are being told people should not live in.
Yeah.
So what do we do now? There's somebody who's lived there for 30, 40 years, has his property.
We have had interactions with the Electricity Company of Ghana, with the Ghana Water Company itself, that areas around the Weija link and also in the Densu Delta Ramsar side should not be given these services. Because when you do that, you are confirming their state. But here's the case where even when you have a kiosk and you want water and electricity there, in the wrong location, they give. And they say that anytime you are unable to continue living there or doing business there, they will disconnect. You see, so that's the philosophy which actually undermines the process. But we have had interactions with them, and we have indicated that if somebody is living in the wrong location, we should also check. But institutional collaboration and consultations actually fall short in this particular. By the time you realize somebody has paid some money somewhere, and then somebody has actually supplied the utility on the grounds that if the person is unable to continue living there, we will disconnect and take our facilities out of the zone. So this is the difficulty we are.
Doc, sorry to interject, but
we are grateful that this program has been put on air, and we want to use this premise to advise people that when you want to invest into buildings or houses or businesses, do due diligence, speak to the Lands Commission, and get them to actually advise you on the location, whether it is advisable. Because I have bought land in the Weija acquisition before. When I approached Lands Commission and they told me it is government land, I stopped the process. I didn't take my money back, but I tried to look for other sources. You can make a mistake.
So Dr. Abrahams, you may be able to afford. You may be able to afford to do that. Dr. Abrahams, you may be able to afford to do that. Others may not. It's interesting. I've just got a message from one of the opinion leaders. He says, let them know even Honorable Tina Mensah, who is the member of parliament for where I went, her house was flooded. Doesn't mean she was not supposed to build there. The member of parliament. And no, hold on for me. Now, the other bit is the members of the community. They say that when it rains, they don't have a problem. You're talking about climate change. When it rains in these communities, they have no problem. At least where I went to, Old Tetegu. But it's only when the dam is spilled that they have a problem. They don't have a problem when it rains. There's no flooding. It is when there's spillage, without informing them, without going through the protocols, that is when they have a problem. How do you address these two issues?
Yes, I think I've already mentioned that we can have the dam spillage when nobody is expecting. It depends on what happens with rain. It's just a matter of intensive rainfall, and that can happen at any time, even the off-season periods, dry season, we could have unexpected rain. And these things are happening because the climate is changing. So that if these are the consequences of it, then you should know that if you are living within the flood-prone areas, of the dam, you have to advise yourself before it gets too late. It is true that people who are in politics, like you mentioned one MP's name now, whom I know very well, we should be careful because when you are in a zone and then you realize that this zone is prone to flooding, anytime it rains around the three regions I mentioned, and the dam will have to be opened, I will suffer these consequences. You have to adjust. You have to.
Hello, Doc. Hello, Dr. Abrahams. Right, we'll try and get Dr. Abrahams back. Too bad he was making a point, but I needed to find out...
And we'll get him back to make that point.
Yeah,
so
I needed to find out two quick things from him. One, when we discussed the issue about the time the spillage was announced and when the spillage actually happened, his response suggested that there are times when there are emergency situations. I wanted him to tell me if this...
I got that feeling as well.
If this particular one was an emergency situation. And two...
Well, the management of the dam, I mean, we have been told by the Ghana Water Company Limited that I think the capacity was it 48.5 or 45 point something, and they had exceeded 49 feet. So...
Did it happen?
Obviously.
Did it happen over a long period, or did it happen instantly? That is what will determine whether it is an emergency situation or not. And then the other thing has to do with what exactly the World Bank project was about, because he said it just fizzled out. We need more details.
So what he made mention of was dredging, and that's why now that seems to have fizzled out, and they are dealing with, is it the Danes or the Dutch? I think the Dutch he mentioned to get some funding for that. Another problem I have with this is that it appears we cannot do anything on our own. We must always source funding from here and there. You know, it sometimes just beats me. Nothing that is, we can always find money for some of the, silliest things to do. Yet when it comes to matters like this, crucial matters, we must always solicit funds elsewhere. Do you know why that is so problematic? Because then if those funds haven't come from wherever, Abuchi, we mark time.
Yeah. And also the issue about people relocating. Look, these are thousands of people. It's not a joke.
Tens of thousands.
And if they have to relocate, where are they going to? Are they going to be compensated? Because you see, somebody got a parcel of land. They got a permit to build.
Yeah.
They got.
Oh, I forgot to add that.
Yes,
they did get permits.
They got
to
a
build.
permit to build.
Yeah.
and they got these institutions, the utility providers, giving them utility.
They have police stations.
In a
Health
way,
facilities.
you are giving me the go ahead. If you give me a permit to build somewhere, what are you saying? You're saying it's okay to build there. So who is going to compensate all these people? Well, I'm told we have Doc back. Hello, Doc. Thank you so much for reconnecting. Sorry, we lost you there. So, Doc, just a quick one, two questions from me. The first is, when you were responding to the issue raised by residents about the time they were given to evacuate prior to the spillage, you alluded to some of these things happening within an emergency situation.
Yeah.
I just want to find out from you if this particular incident was an emergency situation.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello, Doc. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. I'm asking you, what happened that led to the spillage last week? Was it an emergency situation?
It was. It was an emergency situation. And in emergencies, sometimes the notice can come very briefly, and then you have to actually run if you're already in the zone. But I was saying that we don't have to wait until the emergency actually arises. We have to ensure that we position ourselves in an advantageous way so that if you are informed by the Land Commission that this area is flood prone, sometimes there are signals that you see in the zone. If you go into an area and you see plants that are growing in the area, it should send signals to you that this is
But Doc,
we have
sorry
these
to interject, Doc. Please forgive me. Doc, please forgive me. But these people, residents, were given permits to build. They were allowed to be there. So who is going to bear the cost for their movement, for their relocation? That definitely, if there has to be a relocation, then there definitely has to be compensation coming from these government institutions.
Yes, we have two forms of it. We have something we call resettlement. Resettlement comes with compensation. If you are asked to relocate, then it means you have chosen a point that earlier you should know that it is a no-go area.
But you were given a permit to be there, Doc. Yes. These people are not encroachers, are they?
Everything waters down to seeking adequate information and then be on your guard when you are choosing a location. Because, as I said, I have made a similar mistake before. I bought 4 plots in a zone which is belonging to government. And then before I got my current place, I was taken to an area which I saw clearly because I was a scientist. I was able to determine some plans which indicated to me that this is a wetland. So I desisted. I had to desist from.
Now, are you suggesting that government institutions have failed? Because if these places are not supposed to be habited,
institutions have not failed.
Why would you give a permit?
Recalcitrant nature.
Yeah, but Doc,
we are recalcitrant people, and deliberately we put ourselves at a disadvantage.
Doc, I respectfully disagree. How can you lay all the blame on the people and detach and say that the institutions who are giving them all of these things have no role to play?
Government institutions have not failed. It is the recalcitrant nature of our people. Look at what is happening with even Galamsey now. You know, the government has tried to train people, invested money, and the same stock that did the illegal mining went into the training and formed the small-scale mining processes. And when they went into the field, some of them, their philosophy is that mineralization occurs in the water. So if you even train them and you tell them, leave 100 meters, by the fall of darkness, you will notice that they are already in the water channels doing their own thing. And this is where we have difficulties, that we have spent money, asked the military, sponsored these processes, spent all the money, you know, and we see that these things actually don't work out as expected because the people that we are dealing with are disorderly. They don't listen and reason. But we must, as Ghanaians, listen.
Doc, I'm
see,
sorry,
so we
but
have
Doc,
to change
we are not talking
our
about
attitude,
we are not talking
which
about
is-
10 people. We are not talking about 50 people.
Yes.
We are talking about thousands of people who've been given permits. So, Doc, are you saying to me this morning that if a government institution, which is supposed to ensure that the right thing is done, permits you to build in an area that must not be built in, that
it's
government
the same
institution has not
attitude
failed?
Because Ghanaians are in position and sometimes they compromise. So it's the same attitude for the private sector or individuals that actually permits the public institution. There are people who do not care two hoots, will take a lot of money and issue permits that they shouldn't issue. We have experienced that. Even engineers in some of the assemblies, sometimes they write letters to people to sit in places they shouldn't sit in. So that is the experience we have, and which is why we have taken upon ourselves to intensify and sustain awareness creation, because sometimes people will plead the excuse that they were not told, they were not informed. So we have made it a normal part of our work that all the time we should create awareness. And this is also an opportunity to tell people that we need to change our attitude. Sometimes you should be easy to understand. We should be easy to understand why somebody from a technical bench will tell you, move from this zone, don't get into this zone. We have actually fought people who even want to put a washing bay in places, and they have never listened to us. They want to continue, and we have used the military and the police to stop them. And when you look at their attitude or demeanor, you will notice that they are waiting until somebody moves, and then they begin to do the wrong thing. So
but Doc, that's a good one, because your institution has ensured that the right thing is done. So the people were not heeding your advice. You ensured that the right thing was done, i.e. they didn't have the permit to be there to operate a washing bay. Back to what I'm saying, that these people have permits to be there. They've been given the go-ahead.
Yes,
so why lay the blame squarely at their feet?
It's the same wrong attitude which leads to the issuance of permits that should not be given. And we have had cause to refer some of these things to those who do the wrong thing by giving permits where in places they shouldn't give the permits. You know, because as I said, even some areas and even from key government institutions, if I should cite an example, the Weija toll booth or the Tuba toll booth, they did no due diligence to cite it where it actually it is at the moment. You know, they didn't do environmental impact. They didn't obtain permits from the then Ghana West Municipal Assembly. They didn't. And we have pointed this out to them. And this is why people actually have taken to trading activities in the area. We have asked the highway to relocate this thing. And it came along with the closing of the toll booth, so that institutions that actually put facilities in place don't do due diligence, as I was saying. Highways refused to do the environmental impact assessment, and they didn't also obtain permits because they are part of government, and then it's a government institution and all of that. So we haven't given up on educating people, telling people to actually follow due process when they have to put facilities and houses or factories or anything around. We are into a similar situation where people, in the name of 1D, 1F, are attempting to put factories within the no-go zone of the Weija Lake. And we are saying no. The people would just take us round, hand us over to politicians to speak to us, and we still keep our guns that in as much as we have not repealed a law, which is 130, Executive Instrument 130, 1977, we cannot agree with any organization, you know, as far as putting a 1D, 1F facility somewhere. You know, we can't do that. And those who are into the investment of such things are not listening to us. So it boils down to the recalcitrant. When you move a little, you can't be there 24/7. And within some 2 days, maybe over the weekend, when you go back, a war which has started, we will write on it and tell you, stop. And we will be organizing to demolish. By the time we realize they've put the gate, they've done this, they've completed the war, and then they are still seeking ways and means to even attempt to get public officials corrupted.
Right, Doc. We need to. We are running out of time.
To actually buy into their wrong idea and issue them something which is not permit as such, but maybe sometimes you find a letter which has been written to weaken the stance of public institutions, and these things come to the notice of those of us who are into the regulatory processes, and then we actually get surprised that people who are in authority have compromised.
Right,
politicians, civil rights or human rights activists, and sometimes we get attacks from even journalists who do not see point to our viewpoints and then want to argue with us. So we have to love our country and show some sympathy that we must develop. And it shouldn't be the disorderly approach to things, but we must be orderly.
Sure, Doc. I mean, quickly and briefly, the Ghana Water Company says that they have received indication from the Meteorological Agency that there will be more rains in the coming days.
Yes, and it's already happening.
Yeah, so what's being done? I mean, we know that we've been told that some dredging needs to be done.
Well, I've been on TV and radio programs so much in the past 1 week. And everywhere I get to, I try to emphasize the point that the rains are still coming, so we have to be careful. If you are living
is there some dredging going on?
Area and go back there, because you could be killed overnight.
Is there some dredging going on?
Yes.
Desilting?
Yeah, desilting will start very soon. As I mentioned earlier, we are actually far into getting the partnership going so that we can really dredge areas and allow more water to be accommodated.
Is that what? Sorry,
where we have to.
Is that work being done on the estuary to ensure that it's not blocked when there's another spillage?
Yes, NADMO has actually helped to create some large channels to allow the water to flow freely. So those who are in the zone, they are having a momentary relief, but it is not the solution as such. If NADMO has worked to create channels to actually allow the water to drain quickly into the sea, you should also hurry up and leave the zone, because this situation will not stop. And the same water which is coming down will push silt into the zone, and it will be impounded at some point, and NADMO will have to come repeatedly.
We appreciate your time.
We have no business living in such flood-prone areas, and you shouldn't live downstream the flood-prone areas of the Weija Dam, because any time, even in the dry season, if we have 3-4 hours of rain, they will have to give emergency notice and spill. So this emergency notice should go to maybe fishers and others who have no way of getting out of the zone, because if you look at Pambros salt, it's an advantage to the maintenance and then the existence of the Densu Delta Ramsar site.
I appreciate your time this morning.
Yes, so we have to actually relocate all those who have found themselves. It's an unfortunate situation, and life is like that. You know, sometimes you get into a situation where you have invested and you have to lose the investment. We shouldn't actually lose courage. We should courageously move out of such zones and advise others so that these things are not repeated.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Ronald Abrahams, is Chief Basin Officer, the Water Resources Commission. And he ends by saying that don't be afraid to lose your investment. I don't know how that sounds to you.
Yeah, especially in these economic times and everything that is going on. I don't know. It all sounded very, I get it. The people under normal circumstances perhaps shouldn't be there. But we've had these settlements, like people have said, in Old Tetegu for centuries. And the rhetoric that the people there are not thinking, they are not thinking, and they have to. You've given them all of these amenities. In fact, I just got a message from an opinion leader who says, let them know even Honorable Tina Mensah's house was flooded. Atta Mills constructed the bridge for the town. The road contract has been awarded for Tetegu Honorable Tina Mensah is building a government school and a government hospital, which is at 80% completion. Per what Dr. Abrahams is saying, then all of this should be razed to the ground. And he says, finally, this flood has even affected those around the West Hills Mall, SCC, Ashbred, and other places. The solution is the dredging, which government doesn't want to do.
Right. Let's take a breather now. Move on to another subject.